Through achieving discipline, accountability, and learning to be vulnerable, you have the ability to obtain success. Love allows us all to return to our innocence. Love allows us to reclaim who we were before the world ruined us. What's up, everyone, and welcome to episode number 4 of Bridge Everything. In this episode, I want to follow up the last episode, which was on relationships with my wife, Sayu. I feel like it's good to follow that up with an episode on love. So just beginning, I feel like one good thing that is not considered in society today is we often don't ask ourselves or even think about what is love. What is love? And when you ask yourself that question, one thing that you also have to ponder is what isn't love? And I think both of these are good questions in order to develop a healthy relationship with not only yourself, but with others, whether it's friends or romantic partners or even family, of course. I think that considering this, it allows you to develop boundaries and just better circumstances for yourself. I personally define love as trust and acceptance. I also think it's unconditional. But the things it's not is it's not toxic. It's not anger. It's not materialism. It's not attraction. And I feel like a lot of people get love confused with those things. They think that if they're in a relationship and somebody is buying them material things, or if someone is attractive, they might stay in the relationship or lower their standards because this person is eye candy or is getting them expensive things, expensive gifts. And all the while they can be getting treated like shit or not be with someone who is caring of what their futures looks like. They might not be as committed. So, for example, they might be more prone to staying in a relationship with somebody who's cheating on them just because they're getting, again, expensive things or whatever the case is. I know that for me, I had friends who thought that love was toxic, and so they needed to be with people that was constantly arguing because they associated that passion with care, and often that passion was just immature emotions. Another thing love is not convenient. I think a lot of people get that confused. They get out in and out of relationships because it's not easy. And as I mentioned in the episode with my wife Sayu, relationships aren't meant to be easy. They're meant to be uncomfortable at times. I think I think a lot can be said about how easy versus how difficult a relationship is and how valuable that is to you and your life. For me, I think the harder a relationship is to maintain, not always, but more than not, it is adding more value to your life. It's adding more character. It's building more strength. And I think it also challenges you to get outside of your perspective and put yourself in someone else's shoes. So I think that love is not convenient. And I think once people realize that, relationships will be built on a much more solid foundation. And through that, there will be a lot more peace in this world, a lot more companionship, unity in this world, because we're not just staying in this relationship for the convenience of it, but we're staying in it because we unconditionally love you. I know if you grew up in a traumatic household, you might confuse love with being treated in suboptimal ways. You might confuse it with abuse. You might confuse it with vulgar language or so many things that just plague you in your future. So like, no matter where you are in life, whatever age you are, I think it's really life-changing to consider what it is. And then that helps you create a more loving reality for yourself with intent instead of being reactive to the way in which you were raised. And also just on the acceptance aspect, when I love someone, whether it's my wife or a friend or a family member, again, for me, it is unconditional. And so the last thing I'm interested in doing is wanting to impose or influence change on that person that I love. My only objective is to support them, support who they want to be, support how they express themselves. Of course, we can have intellectual conversations. We can debate ideologies, behaviors. We can have disagreements left and right. But ultimately, my objective is to not want to influence their behaviors. If anything, just learn with them. And likewise, I want them to share with me things that they're learning, their opinions. But love shouldn't be dictating. Love shouldn't be controlling. Love shouldn't require change, in my opinion. Again, this is just for me. Now, of course, if you're in a relationship, especially a romantic relationship, there will be opportunities in which you, as a couple, need to compromise on certain things. But as far as just accepting personalities and characteristics, habits, as long as they're not self-sabotaging and as long as they're not things that were learned from trauma, then I wouldn't ask my partner to change something, again, unless we had a conversation and it was like, oh, I realized that I have this horrible way of communicating with you because bad communication was practiced in my household. That is something that is fair to say, and it is fair to ask your partner to learn how to communicate better. But all I'm saying is I think at the same time, if you are choosing to be with this person, you have to be able to love them past that. And again, I think I've mentioned in the episode already, like, I truly love imperfection. I truly love flaws, rawness. And so I see beauty in something that maybe someone else would see as something that's intolerable. And so hopefully that makes sense. Again, this is just what love is for me. I would never ask somebody that I'm in relationship with, no matter the relation, to change who they are to meet my standards, because I think that it truly has to be unconditional and we are just here to support that person. I would also say that a question to consider is, can you love someone else without loving yourself? My answer to that question would be no. I also, maybe this is controversial, but I also feel like most people don't truly love themselves today. I think that's why there's so much sickness in the world, so much addiction, so much lack of self-respect and dignity. And so, yeah, I would say that, I can't scientifically prove it, but seemingly love is at an all-time low in this world today. I feel like a lot of people are struggling. A lot of people are in doubt or fear or vulnerable situations. And it's hard to love yourself in these circumstances. And so I think it's extremely important for us to all give ourselves grace, give ourselves compassion, give ourselves the love we're deserving of. And that's a journey. I went through a long journey in which I didn't value myself. I self-sabotaged for many years. And through silence, solitude, discipline, and discovery, or, curiosity, I was able to repair myself and appreciate myself, appreciate my journey, my struggles, and truly love myself. But it was a journey. And I think that's beautiful. I think it's heroic. And so, if anyone is struggling with finding love for themselves, create a plan, create boundaries, create goalposts, and celebrate the small wins. It's possible. I promise you. If I can do it, anybody can do it. And it's needed. We need more people to love themselves so we can love one another. And if we consider that question, then we are in a relationship, especially if we're in a relationship, a romantic relationship, and we tell this person that we love them. Is the premise of this relationship on solid foundation, or is it a form of escapism? And not to say that if you are in a relationship with someone and if you are thinking about this question, do I love myself for the first time ever? Doesn't mean the relationship can't be salvaged. The relationship can't be rejuvenated and repaired or continue to flourish, and not only even continue to flourish, but can't still be the partner of your life. It can, but it will be in your best interest and that person's best interest for you to learn to love yourself. And it doesn't have to be a reason to end the relationship just because you realize, because again, this isn't even just about romantic relationships. This is about relationships as a whole. Do your friends love you? If your friends don't love themselves, I will argue that they don't love you. But again, this doesn't mean that the relationship needs to end because of that. Sorry if I keep on repeating that, but I'm just trying to really get that point expressed. That just because somebody doesn't love you doesn't mean that the relationship isn't valuable. I think all relationships are valuable, even the negative ones. And I think as long as the relationship isn't harmful, especially violent or emotionally harmful, emotionally abusive, physically abusive, as long as it's not filled with lies, if there's trust in that relationship, I will argue that it's worth keeping, worth maintaining, worth rehabbing, worth improving. But other relationships, I would say, which is important to wonder if not only do my friends love me, does my partner love me, but do my parents love me? I have a theory that the majority of our parents, and when I say all, I just mean all people on earth, no one in particular, not a specific race. And this theory is just based off of my viewpoint of where we are in society today. I think it's hopefully clear for most people listening to see that there's a decline socially. Still the greatest time to ever be alive in human history, but things are regressing on the societal level. When you look at just the health decline, whether mental, physical, again, the addictions, the bad communication, the things that are being televised, from, not to judge anyone who is a fan of any of these things, but from toxic reality TV to just all the gossip that is omnipresent in social media and on television. All the influencers that are really just taking advantage of people's intellect or lack of intellect. All these things that are just happening for, I feel like anybody can kind of see where the world is today on a societal level. I would say that the result of that is that many of our parents don't love us. It's a harsh theory, maybe an uncomfortable theory for many people to listen to, but I think that, again, I think we live in a world in which most people don't love themselves. And if most people don't love themselves, if I don't love myself, how can I love my child? When you just look at the culture around parenting, we'll get into what my ideas of a parent looks like in another episode. But when you just look at the culture around parenting, from whooping kids to getting them hooked on sugar to giving them tablets and TV to occupy their attention so you can have a break from them, to just teaching them horrible habits, imposing our beliefs and our stigmas, our biases into them, trying to control them, trying to influence who they are going to be in this world, lying to them, and being dictatorial to them, being a dictator to them. If I'm a parent, I can deeply care for my child, and that care in a sick society will be confused as love. So again, I think this is why it's important to understand, or at least ask yourself, what is love? Because for me, it's unconditional. And I think many parents culturally today, they love their kids conditionally. They love their kids if they play the role that they imagine their kids to be, whether it's going to college or having a kid the quote unquote right way, or not doing drugs or not getting tattoos, whatever it is. I think a lot of even being gay, I think a lot of parents conditionally love their kids, and even the ones who maybe are unconditional, I still think there's a huge form of control. So there's a big difference between telling your child to go to bed, telling your child to brush their teeth, and restricting them from devices or having boundaries in place for them to flourish, versus dictating what they're going to grow up to be, that they have to go to college, that they have to follow the family tradition, that they have to dress a certain way, look a certain way, that they can't have to date someone from a certain class or race or gender, that they have to have certain grades. We shouldn't prioritize grades or institutional standards, but we should just focus on effort that they give, focus on behavior, mindset. And so when I say that parents are authoritative, it's not to say that you can't parent your child. Yeah, you still have to parent your child. You still have to teach them responsibilities. For anyone that's listening to this, don't feel like you've lost a certain amount of power or like you're confused about what your role as a parent is. No, I'm just saying that with my idea of love, it is incompatible to dictate what a child should or shouldn't do, and to only give them love if they meet my standards, whether it's via grades or anything that I just mentioned. So please, for anyone listening, just understand that there's nuance here. There's also a lack of prioritizing the relationship in its most purest way without all the bullshit that gets in the way of relationships. And again, it's hard to go too deep into this without explaining what my idea and what my belief the role of a parent is supposed to be playing. But just to quickly touch on it, I think that a parent's role is really just to expose their child. So not to just say this is what you need to believe, but to expose your child to as much as possible. Our role is to support our child no matter what they choose, and understand that whatever they choose is really the result of us. If it's not the result of us, it's the result of, the environment we allowed them to be in or put them in. And if they're influenced by an external environment, then that's still the result of us, because they're only going to be influenced by peers or external factors, external people, if they don't value you and your relationship with them as much. And why would that be? That would only occur if the relationship you have with them is inefficient. And so, yeah, again, just getting back on point, I think our role is to expose them to as much knowledge and information and circumstances as possible, is to protect them, of course, but protect them also is protecting them to be whoever it is they want to be, giving them the security blanket to express themselves in whatever capacity they choose to express themselves, but also protecting them from social media, protecting them from TV, protecting them from external influences, protecting them from things that their brain is not able to withstand. So not introducing things to them at too young of an age. And I would also say our role is to listen to them. Like, our kids are pure, kids are innocent, and we often ruin them with our ignorance, the ignorance that society has imposed onto us. So more than anything, again, I just think the role of a parent is to not impose on your kids, or to not overly impose on your kids, just to be very intentional, to watch them, to water them, to allow them to blossom. And I would say that many parents didn't afford us those opportunities. Many parents, again, in my opinion, are just very strict. They're overprotective, and in being overprotective, that's them imposing their traumas onto us. And I think most parents do that. I think most parents impose their fears, their traumas, their ignorance onto their kids. And that's not love, at least not to me. And so, yeah, I've been saying for maybe like over a year now that most parents don't love their kids, because most parents don't consider what love is. They're just raising their kids based on tradition, and the tradition is broken. The tradition is corrupt. The tradition is sickening. And if you're raising your kids with sickening tradition, you're going to raise sick individuals, sick adults. And look at the world today. It's filled with adults and even teens nowadays that are consumed with greed and dollars, materials, sex, lust, drugs. And not to judge anyone involved in any of these things. I'm very sympathetic to the times that we're living in, which is why I'm doing this podcast, just to expose and to shine light on these things. I feel like in a way that is needed for all of us. And if you come to the conclusion, me bringing up the our parents don't love us theory isn't to ruin relationships with your parents, if you're listening, but if anything, it's to water those relationships, to tend to those relationships, to go on this journey, discovering each other, to reclaiming our innocence. Ask your parents what happened to them. How were they raised? How were they treated? What were they neglected? What abused them? What abuses did they deal with? We are all creatures of our circumstances until we choose no longer to be. And that's what love is. Love allows us all to return to our innocence. Love allows us to reclaim who we were before the world ruined us. And it's a choice. You can heal yourself through love. You can heal yourself through these conversations. You can heal your relationships. All inefficient relationships can become efficient. You can also develop new ones with new people, but more so than anything, I hope this episode gives you hope, inspires you, allows you to imagine what can be, allows you to imagine what love can be, what love is to you. I hope it heals you in your relationships with your parents, your friends, spouse, partner, anyone. And I love you all. I love anyone that's listening. Thank you so much to listening to episode 4 of Bridge Everything. I'll talk to you all soon. Be well.